Welcome to configuring a DSN. In this video, we will be walking through the steps necessary to configure a DSN in order to create a connection to an ODBC compliant database. Thingworx Kepware server has the ability to interact with ODBC databases in two different ways. Push data from Kep server using our data logger, or pull data from the database into Kepware using the ODBC client driver. These two features can be used independently from one another or together to create bidirectional data flow. Users can also use link tags from the Advanced Tag plugin to create communication from the database down to the PLC. This architecture is often used for recipe control and management. Regardless of the application, both the data logger and the ODBC client driver need to have a DSN configured in order to connect to the database. Let's get started. As stated earlier, the DSN configuration is crucial in both the data logger and the ODBC client driver. In this video, we will be using the data logger to show the configuration steps. However, the process is the same for either option. First, we will create a log group and then click the Browse button in the DSN field, and then click Configure DSN to access the ODBC Data Source Administrator. Note, this is a 32-bit Microsoft application and is not part of Kepware. There are a few tabs to select from here. Since Kep server's runtime acts as a service, we will use the System DSN tab to add a data source. This is where we will select our driver for the specific database. In this video, we will be using an instance of SQL Server, so we will select the most recent ODBC driver. Next, we will give the DSN a name and tell it which server to connect to. This screen will allow us to select authentication options for connecting to the server. The two most common options are using the integrated Windows authentication or using the SQL Server specific username and password. As a note, since this is a Microsoft application and not part of Kep server, the SQL credentials used here are to test the connection only and has nothing to do with the Kep server authentication to the server. If you choose the SQL authentication option, you will need to input these credentials again in the log group properties. For this video, we will select Windows authentication. The next window gives us database-specific options. Here we can change the database to which Kep server will write to. Please note, you must grant permissions for users to create, modify, and read in the database you are writing to before Kep server can interact with it. For SQL, this can be done in the SQL Management Studio application. If this is not completed before enabling the data logger, you will receive an error in the event log. We will click Next and then finally Finish. The final dialog window gives an overview of the configuration settings you have set for the DSN. This window may include a test button for the data source. This will entirely depend on the DSN being configured. In this case, we will click Test to confirm our connectivity. Once the test is completed, we can navigate back to the original dialog screen, select our DSN, and click OK. Because we chose Windows Authentication, we now must change Kep server's runtime service to run as a named user as opposed to a local system user. We will open the Start menu and search for Services. Browse to Kep server EX runtime service and click on Properties. Once we navigate to the Log On tab, we will change from a local system account to a named user. This allows Kep server to interact with the SQL server using our Windows Authentication credentials. Congratulations on a successful configuration of a DSN.